A familiar face in our program. He's a former U.S. federal prosecutor. Joe, welcome back.
Hi, Carol. Great to be here.
Okay, I'm going to get right to our questions tonight because it starts us off at a pretty good spot. Our first question tonight comes from Patty on Facebook. She writes, Trump has every right to have people around him whom he can trust. If he didn't trust her, then he was right to get rid of her. And by the sounds of it, he did the right thing. Joe, I'll start with you on that. Is that the issue here?
Well, I mean, that's certainly what the Republicans are saying, is that the president can remove an ambassador just like many other political appointees for any reason or no reason at all. And I think that what the Democrats attempted to do here today with respect to how President Trump treated Ambassador Yovanovitch was not so much a criminal or a legal argument. It was more of a political one. It was to show that we have, in her words, a State Department that's in disarray, that's being hollowed out from the inside, and how she was treated so poorly for reasons implying that there were reasons that she was trying to do the right thing, and she was removed for doing the right thing. So I think the takeaway there is not so much there's something criminally wrong with how President Trump treated her, it's more political damage to him, and I think in that respect it probably was pretty effective.
Okay. Jeffrey on Facebook asking, it seems beyond doubt at this point that the president withheld resources in exchange for Ukraine's help in investigating a political opponent. The question is, does this in fact constitute a crime, and what should be done about it? Joe?
So it's a confusing point, but you don't technically need a crime to impeach someone, right? Even though the Constitution says you can impeach them for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. So you don't need to have a formal violation of the federal criminal code. That being said, what it looks like the Democrats are doing is they're building a case. They were saying quid pro quo until a couple of days ago. Now they're saying basically bribery. And that's what I think what they're moving toward is.
And specifically around which issue?
That basically the president used his official power to effectuate something, here meaning the delay but eventual release of military aid, in exchange for something of value. And that would ostensibly be information against Joe and Hunter Biden that could effectively damage Joe Biden if he is the Democratic nominee in next year's presidential election. That, I think, would be the theory. That's probably the closest thing we have here to an official criminal violation. But again, that being said, you don't need to fill the contours of a technical criminal violation to say something is impeachable and that Congress deems it unworthy of someone remaining in the office of president because of something he or she did.
Okay. Michael? About the witness while she was on the stand, and you saw Adam Schiff very specifically ask her how she felt about that, and she said it was intimidating, and he said we don't appreciate witness intimidation. Number one, does that qualify as witness intimidation, what the president did, and is that an impeachable offense?
I mean, look, technically almost anything can be an impeachable offense.
Right.
I think that it's certainly unseemly. It's certainly inappropriate. It harkens back to the way President Trump was tweeting about Robert Mueller during the course of the Russia probe, and he was doing it all the time. So, I think that, again, I think the damage with respect to the tweet is much more political than it is legal. Could the Democrats roll that into an impeachment article? Sure. But at that point, we're going to be doing this every single day because I think we're going to see more tweets. So if I was advising the Democrats, I would say, look, focus on the merits of the core offenses here. There's plenty to work with. I don't think you need to, kind of snowball this every single time the president tweets. I think the political damage to him was sufficient.
Okay. Yeah, it was 2014. Joe Biden was the president of the United States. He was deeply involved.
He was the vice president of the United States.
Did I say president? Sorry.
Yes.
No, vice president, of course. He was the vice president of the United States. He was deeply involved in U.S. diplomacy to help Ukraine fend off Russian aggression, to root out corruption. And then his son is at the same time hired by a Ukraine gas company to sit on its board. Here's Devin Nunes talking about that today.
Why did Burisma hire Hunter Biden? What did he do for them? And did his position affect any government actions under the Obama administration?
Joe, are these fair points, fair questions for the Republicans to say it's fair to investigate this?
Some would say it's a red herring, right? That whether or not something was untoward or inappropriate or even illegal with respect to what Hunter Biden was doing several years ago has nothing to do with what President Trump did a few months ago with respect to the military aid and President Zelensky. That being said, it's hard to ignore it, right? Because that's the issue that President Trump was ostensibly looking into. And I think if he were defending himself, and I think his surrogates ultimately will make the argument that he was just looking into corruption. And this looks fishy, right? Vice President Biden was in charge of Ukraine policy, and there's his son sitting on the board of a large, liquid natural gas company in that country, in Ukraine, making a lot of money. So I think that it's an unfortunate issue, and it's going to be difficult to ignore it as this impeachment runs its course. So I think that, again, it doesn't have a direct bearing on the impeachment issue and what President Trump has done, but it's going to be hard to say that it's completely irrelevant, and I have to think the Republicans are not going to let that go.
Michael? One more question coming in I thought would be interesting for you. I've been watching the live broadcast. This is from Jill Innes. I have been watching the live broadcast and is surprised what a circus this is. Why are these hearings not chaired by a totally nonpartisan individual, preferably someone of some standing from outside of the U.S.? This would assure that both Democrat and Republican representatives are treated fairly.
I mean, it's an interesting concept, but look, impeachment, it's the system that we have to work with, right? Our founding fathers set this in motion. They didn't put a lot of parameters around what impeachment should look like or how it should proceed, other than to say the House of Representatives deals with impeachment and the Senate deals with a trial if it gets to that point. And that's about it. So certainly a more bipartisan process would be very welcomed. It's anything but right now here in Washington. But again, as everyone keeps saying, it's not legal. This is not there's no judge. There's no impartial jury. These are the very politicians that run for office and fight amongst each other that are now sitting as de facto prosecutors and jurors in hearing this out. So, while it would be great to think that we could have a process that is not, in effect, a circus, it's kind of what we're stuck with.
All right. Michael Isikoff, chief investigative correspondent at Yahoo News and author of the book Russian Roulette, the inside story of Putin's war in America and the election of Donald Trump. And Joseph Moreno, former U.S. federal prosecutor. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Always a pleasure.
The unfolding impeachment drama is sending shockwaves across the United States, but it's also helping to complicate an already fragile political situation in Ukraine. Coming up, I'll speak with a Ukraine expert about how the impeachment inquiry is affecting that country and its prospects for peace with Russia.